Actually, it's sort of interesting because that is the big question sort of in our film. We examine 50 years of Hollywood's attempts to make surf movies. When Big Wednesday came out in 1978, it was a failure. It was a critical failure. It was a financial failure. Surfers didn't even like it. But somehow 30 years later, now it's considered, a cult classic. And even surfers that didn't like it then, now they love it. And I think the reason why that is so is that the values that Big Wednesday expressed are sort of timeless. It's about friendship, and it's about that shared experience that these guys had, and it's about, as the years pass, how important friendship is. And as surfing sort of grew and aged, I think that those values became more important. And so suddenly they look back at Big Wednesday and they go, you know what? We should give that movie another chance, And so I think that's one of the reasons why now it's considered that way. Nia brought up a really interesting thing about the making of Hollywood Don't Surf. You're talking about the friends coming together.
Well, that was the interesting thing to me, because I'm really more of a filmmaker than a surfer. I mean, I surf as well. But to watch John Milius, who is both a surfer and a filmmaker, kind of very publicly fail at something that was so important to him. You have to remember what he did was he didn't just present something that was in a dream. He tried to represent his tribe faithfully, something that was very personal to him, and he failed very publicly. And when he succeeded, when it became a surf cult classic, that was kind of private. It's very quiet that it succeeded over the years. So for this movie, in combining both the adventure of the filmmaking and the importance of surfing to someone like John, it kind of reinvigorated him. And it brought all the pieces together for him, and he's very appreciative of that. And it's brought everything together between the filmmaking, his love of filmmaking, the art of filmmaking, and the love and the art of surfing.
And the interesting thing that you brought up too is it also brought together his friends.
Yes, and that was the important thing too. When you think that there's Steven Spielberg is in the movie. Well, we came to him and said, look, we are making this very small little documentary, and he said yes. Why? Because he was backing up John Milius, and that is that line, that connection of the friendship. That's universal. It comes from surfing, it goes through filmmaking, it goes everywhere in the world. That is universal, the subject of friendship, and we can see that it's witnessed here in this movie when you have people like Quentin Tarantino showing up, and you have all the old, Gary Busey, and you have Steven Spielberg coming just to participate and support someone like John Milius.
It is that thing you brought up, the parallel is there. You had the three friends in Big Wednesday. And it's not just Big Wednesday. If you look at even the early beach party movies, there was a core group of friends, and they were recurring characters. But if you watch all of them, you realize there was this core group of friends, and it really is what the movie's about. And it was neat to see the filmmakers feel the same way. Quentin Tarantino grew up idolizing John Milius, watching his movies when he worked in a video store. And he insisted on being in our movie because he wanted to back him up, And so there is that parallel. The passion of filmmaking is very much like the passion of surfing.
Yes.
You know what? With all the technology and all this new opportunities available, it still comes down to the most basic thing since the Bible. Since the Odyssey. It's all about story.
Stories, yeah.
It's about a story, and about a good story. And that's what's interesting. That's what separates the exploitive movies. Like in our film, we look at some of the movies that just wanted to exploit surfing, as opposed to filmmakers that really wanted to express a story. And sometimes they were successful. Most of the time they weren't. But for a young filmmaker today, the most important thing is the same thing that has always been the most important. It's got to start with a story, and that's timeless.